You are not here by accident, and this moment is not neutral. Seeing this is not the beginning of something approaching you, it is the confirmation of something that has already crossed the threshold. Contact does not announce itself with noise. It reveals itself through recognition. And recognition only happens when the internal signal is already coherent enough to register what was previously invisible. If you are seeing this, the signal you've been carrying has stabilized. Not through effort. Not through intention. But through state. Reality does not respond to what you want. It responds to what you are. And what you are has reached a point of clarity where the field can now answer without distortion. This is not coincidence. Coincidence is a label used when cause and effect operate beyond conscious tracking. The idea that you found this is backwards. You did not discover it. You aligned with it. When your internal frequency becomes steady, the field mirrors that steadiness by collapsing distance. What once felt far suddenly feels obvious. What once felt hidden suddenly feels familiar. This is how contact begins. Not with arrival, but with overlap. There is a reason this did not appear earlier. Not because you were unworthy, unprepared, or lacking information, but because the signal was still fragmented. Fragmentation scatters response. Coherence attracts it. The field does not reward effort. It reflects consistency. And consistency only emerges when you stop trying to become something and instead allow what you already are to settle. This moment marks a shift from seeking to receiving. Seeking implies absence. Receiving implies presence. The moment you stop scanning the horizon for confirmation, confirmation arrives. Not as spectacle, but as quiet recognition. Something in you already knows this. That knowing is the signal. The rest is just form catching up. Contact does not come to convince you. It comes because you are no longer asking to be convinced. Doubt is noise. Readiness is silence. And silence is the clearest transmitter there is. When the internal dialogue slows, the field speaks without raising its voice. You may notice that nothing dramatic is happening externally. That is precisely the point. True thresholds are crossed internally first. External change follows later, and often quietly. The field moves with precision, not urgency. It mirrors calm with clarity. It mirrors grasping with delay. This is not a message meant to excite you. Excitement is unstable. This is meant to settle you. Settlement is what allows continuity. And continuity is what keeps contact open. What opens now is not a moment, but a phase. You are not being chosen. You are remembering. And remembering does not require effort. It requires honesty. Honesty about your state. Honesty about your readiness to stop forcing outcomes and allow resonance to do its work. This is the moment you were never meant to miss, because missing it was never an option once the signal stabilized. If you are aligned with this frequency, subscribe and remain within it. Contact does not begin with something arriving into your life. That assumption belongs to a model where you are separate from the field, waiting for an external response to cross a distance. But there is no distance. There is only alignment. What you call contact is not an event moving toward you. It is a condition that becomes visible once your internal state overlaps with what already exists. Resonance always precedes form. Before anything appears, before any change is noticed, before any confirmation becomes tangible, there is a vibrational agreement. The field does not send signals into chaos. It responds to coherence. When your internal frequency stabilizes, it creates a matching surface. That surface allows something that was already present to register within your awareness. This is why contact feels less like discovery and more like recognition. Recognition happens when two frequencies match closely enough that separation dissolves. Nothing new is created in that moment. What changes is your capacity to perceive what could not meet you before. The field was never withholding. Your state was simply not compatible yet. External events are secondary. They are the echo, not the source. When resonance occurs internally, form reorganizes itself naturally. This is not because you caused it, but because incompatibility can no longer be sustained. The field always moves toward coherence. When your state becomes clear, the environment adjusts without effort. Many misunderstand contact as something dramatic because drama is how the mind marks importance. But the field does not use drama. It uses precision. Resonance is subtle. It feels like familiarity. Like remembering something you never learned. Like knowing without explanation. That quiet certainty is the signature of overlap. Your internal state is not a mood. It is not a thought. It is the sum of what you allow yourself to be without resistance. When that state becomes consistent, it sends a stable signal. And a stable signal does not need to search. It does not need to call out. It is met automatically by whatever can match it. This is why forcing never produces true contact. Forcing introduces instability. Its signals lack. And the field mirrors lack with delay or distortion. Allowing, on the other hand, produces clarity. It removes interference. It lets the signal speak in its natural language, which is coherence. What can meet you now is determined entirely by what you are willing to sustain emotionally. Not what you desire, but what you can hold without tension. The field does not test you. It reflects you. If something has not appeared, it is not absent. It is simply unmatched. Contact begins the moment you stop expecting arrival and start noticing alignment. The moment you stop watching the horizon and feel into your own state. That is where overlap happens. That is where resonance locks in. And once it does, form has no choice but to follow. This changes how you relate to everything. You stop asking when. You stop asking how. You stop looking outward for signs. Instead, you refine your state. You let it settle. You let it stabilize. Because once resonance is present, contact is no longer a question. It is a condition that maintains itself as long as coherence remains. This appears only when you are no longer searching, because searching is a declaration of distance. The moment you seek, you reinforce the assumption that what you are looking for exists somewhere other than where you are. That assumption fractures the signal. The field does not respond to effort aimed outward. It responds to coherence that is already present. Seeking feels active, but energetically it is unstable. It carries urgency, expectation, and tension. All of those introduce noise. Noise scatters resonance. And when resonance is scattered, nothing can fully meet you. This is not punishment. It is physics at the level of consciousness. A moving target cannot be precisely contacted. Readiness does not arrive through accumulation. It arrives through release. When the effort to find answers collapses, something essential stabilizes. The internal state stops oscillating between hope and doubt. It settles into neutrality. And neutrality is not emptiness. It is openness without demand. That openness creates a clean surface for resonance. This is why contact often comes after you stop trying to make it happen. Not because you gave up, but because you stopped interfering. Interference is subtle. It hides inside questions like, when will it happen, or, what am I missing? Those questions assume absence. The field mirrors that assumption by keeping things just out of reach. When effort collapses, the internal signal becomes still. Stillness is not inactivity. It is alignment without resistance. In that state, you are no longer projecting forward into imagined outcomes. You are present. And presence is the only place where contact can register. There is nowhere else for it to land. This is also why the moment of recognition often feels anticlimactic. There is no surge. No fireworks. Just a quiet certainty that something has shifted. That certainty is not emotional excitement. It is structural alignment. Something in you stops asking. And when the question dissolves, the answer no longer needs to announce itself. Searching assumes that clarity is earned through effort. But clarity emerges through honesty. Honesty about your state. Honesty about the tension you've been carrying. Honesty about the subtle belief that something is missing. When that belief loosens, the signal stabilizes on its own. Contact becomes inevitable not because you summoned it, but because there is no longer anything blocking it. The field has always been responsive. It has simply been waiting for a state that does not contradict itself. Seeking is contradiction. Allowing is coherence. This is the reversal most never notice. The moment you stop reaching, things begin to reach you. Not because they moved, but because you stopped moving away from them internally. The overlap becomes possible. The resonance locks in. So if this is appearing now, it is not because you finally searched correctly. It is because you stopped searching altogether. Something in you decided to rest. To release the tension of becoming. To allow what is already true to surface. That is readiness. Not effort. Not discipline. Not striving. Just the quiet decision to stop pushing against the moment. And in that stillness, contact no longer has to chase you. It simply meets you where you are. Now the focus shifts. What has been felt intuitively is ready to be understood structurally. This is not a move away from mystery, but a clarification of how the contact phase actually functions beneath the surface. When you understand the mechanics, you stop misinterpreting feedback and start stabilizing the signal intentionally without force. The field does not respond to what you want. Wanting is unstable. It fluctuates between anticipation and doubt. The field responds to what you are being consistently. State is coherence. Intention is often a mental overlay placed on top of an unstable emotional frequency. When those two are misaligned, intention loses authority. You can intend abundance while inhabiting tension. You can intend clarity while carrying urgency. The field does not prioritize the words of your intention over the signal of your state. It mirrors the dominant frequency. Always. This is why so much effort appears unrewarded. The effort itself often introduces the very incoherence that delays response. Emotional and energetic state outweigh intention because state is what you are broadcasting continuously. It is not episodic. It does not turn on and off when you focus. It is the background signal that everything else rides on. The field reads that signal with precision. There is no misinterpretation. There is only reflection. Calm is not passivity. Calm is coherence without resistance. When calm is present, the signal sharpens. Noise drops away. The field does not need repetition when the signal is clear. It does not need convincing. It responds automatically because compatibility has been established. This is why forcing intention never accelerates contact. Force adds pressure. Pressure compresses clarity. The more you push, the more the signal distorts. Allowing, on the other hand, removes interference. It lets intention sit inside coherence instead of fighting against it. When your state is settled, intention becomes unnecessary. The field already knows how to respond because nothing in your frequency contradicts the response. This is the point where things begin to move without visible effort. Not because you are doing more, but because you are no longer disrupting the process. Calm coherence does not mean emotional numbness. It means emotional honesty without amplification. Feelings move through without being clung to or resisted. This keeps the signal clean. The field can then mirror with precision instead of approximation. If you are noticing subtle confirmations, quiet shifts, or a sense of inevitability rather than excitement, that is a sign the signal is clarifying. Dramatic emotion is not required. Consistency is. The field prefers stability over intensity. Like the video now as a confirmation that this recognition has landed. From this point forward, the question is no longer what you are intending, but what you are sustaining. Sustained state determines sustained contact. The mechanics are simple, but not negotiable. The field answers coherence with coherence. Always. Emotion is not a reaction to reality. It is an instruction to it. Long before the mind interprets what is happening, emotion has already transmitted a signal. The field does not wait for your conclusions. It responds to the frequency embedded in what you feel and sustain. This is why emotion is not something to control or suppress. It is something to read. Every emotional state carries information. Not meaning, not morality, but direction. Expansion signals alignment. Contraction signals misalignment. Neither is wrong. Neither is punishment. They are feedback mechanisms built into consciousness itself, guiding coherence without judgment. The moment you label an emotion as bad, you stop listening to what it is telling you. Expansion feels like openness, ease, clarity, quiet certainty. It does not always feel exciting. Often it feels simple, spacious, clean. When you are in expansion, the signal you emit is congruent. The field meets congruence with responsiveness. Things flow not because you deserve them, but because there is no resistance to their arrival. Contraction feels like tension, urgency, heaviness, or internal friction. This is not failure. It is information. Contraction indicates that something in your state is attempting to hold incompatible frequencies at once. The discomfort is not an obstacle. It is a prompt to soften, release, or reorient. When you resist contraction, you amplify it. When you listen to it, it resolves naturally. The mistake is trying to use emotion as a tool for manipulation. Forcing positivity. Avoiding discomfort. Pretending coherence. The field does not respond to performance. It responds to authenticity. Emotion becomes a clear transmission code only when it is allowed to move without distortion. When you allow emotion to be what it is, without story or suppression, it completes its function quickly. The signal updates. The field adjusts. But when you cling to emotion or fight it, the signal loops. The same feedback repeats, not to punish you, but to be heard. This is why emotional awareness is more powerful than intention. Intention is occasional. Emotion is continuous. The field reads continuity. It mirrors what you sustain, not what you declare. Learning to feel without resistance is learning to communicate clearly. Expansion is not something to chase. It emerges when alignment is restored. Contraction is not something to escape. It dissolves when its message is received. Both are neutral. Both are intelligent. They exist to refine the signal, not derail it. As contact stabilizes, emotion becomes subtler. You begin to feel shifts before events occur. A lightness before movement. A tightening before misalignment expresses externally. This sensitivity is not fragility. It is precision. You are reading the field from the inside. Nothing is wrong when contraction appears. It simply means something is asking to be released. Nothing is special when expansion appears. It simply means coherence is present. The field responds equally to both, adjusting according to the clarity of the signal. When you stop judging emotion and start decoding it, you stop fighting reality. You begin cooperating with it. And cooperation produces a signal the field can answer without delay or distortion. Control feels like stability, but energetically it is interference. The impulse to control arises from mistrust of the field's responsiveness. It assumes that without constant adjustment, correction, or pressure, nothing will move. That assumption alone introduces distortion into the signal. The field does not respond cleanly to signals that contradict themselves. Control tightens the frequency. It compresses possibility into expectation. When you try to manage outcomes, timelines, or responses, you fragment coherence. One part of you is attempting to allow movement, while another is bracing against uncertainty. That internal split creates noise. Noise blurs the signal. And a blurred signal receives a delayed or distorted reflection. The field is precise. It does not guess. It mirrors exactly what is being sustained. Control broadcasts urgency, fear of loss, and conditional trust. Even when paired with calm language or positive framing, the underlying frequency is still contraction. The field responds to the contraction, not the explanation layered on top of it. Allowing restores signal integrity because it removes contradiction. Allowing is not giving up. It is releasing resistance to outcomes you cannot micromanage anyway. When resistance drops, the signal becomes singular. Singular signals are powerful not because they push harder, but because they do not conflict with themselves. This is why control often feels exhausting. It requires constant maintenance. The moment attention drops, fear reappears. That oscillation is detectable. The field reads it as instability and mirrors it with inconsistency. You may experience partial movement, followed by reversal, delay, or repetition. Not because something went wrong, but because the signal kept changing. Allowing stabilizes because it accepts uncertainty without tension. It does not demand immediate confirmation. It trusts coherence to do what force never can. When allowing is present, emotion moves freely. Expansion is not chased. Contraction is not resisted. Both pass through without being amplified. This keeps the signal clean. Control tries to protect identity. Allowing allows identity to evolve. The field only responds fully when identity is flexible enough to receive what is aligning. When you insist on how something must appear, you limit what can reach you. The field does not argue. It simply reflects the limit. This is not about becoming passive. It is about becoming accurate. Accurate signals do not wobble. They do not negotiate with fear. They do not issue ultimatums to reality. They rest in coherence and let response organize itself naturally. If control has been your strategy, nothing has gone wrong. Control was a phase. It was an attempt to create safety. But safety does not come from gripping the process. It comes from trusting the feedback loop. The field is always responding. The question is whether the signal is clear enough to receive the response. Allowing does not mean nothing happens. It means what happens is not distorted by resistance. When allowing replaces control, movement becomes smoother, quieter, and more consistent. The signal locks in. The field answers without delay because there is nothing contradicting the response. Comment with the words, "I am ready," to anchor this timeline. Readiness is not proven by control. It is demonstrated by release. When you stop gripping the signal, it finally travels without interruption. What follows is not an initiation, but a result. Once contact stabilizes, consequences emerge quietly and without negotiation. This section is not about how contact opens, but about what reorganizes itself once it has. The field does not add complexity at this stage. It simplifies. And simplification often looks like collapse from the outside. Old timelines do not shatter. They dissolve. There is no explosion, no punishment, no dramatic ending. Incompatible paths simply lose momentum. What once felt heavy begins to feel irrelevant. What once demanded effort starts slipping out of focus. This is not loss. It is resonance withdrawing from what it can no longer sustain. A timeline is not a fixed future. It is a pattern of momentum built from sustained state. When your state changes, the momentum feeding certain outcomes weakens. The field responds by reallocating energy. Some possibilities stop receiving reinforcement. They fade not because you rejected them, but because they no longer match who you are being. This can feel confusing if you are still measuring progress by external markers. Relationships may loosen. Desires may fall away. Goals you once chased may no longer pull at you. The mind may label this as stagnation or uncertainty. But beneath that interpretation is a cleaner truth: coherence is pruning what cannot follow you. Nothing is being taken. There is no penalty for alignment. The field does not subtract. It recalibrates. When resonance shifts, incompatible structures cannot hold. They dissolve naturally, like tension releasing once pressure is removed. The drama only appears when resistance is added. This is why collapse during contact often feels strangely calm. There may be moments of uncertainty, but not panic. Something in you knows the release is correct, even if the mind has not caught up. That knowing is alignment recognizing itself in motion. Old timelines persist only as long as attention feeds them. When attention withdraws without effort, they cannot survive. This withdrawal is not intentional. It happens automatically when identity shifts. You stop rehearsing old futures. You stop emotionally investing in outcomes that no longer resonate. The field responds by closing those loops. There is no need to analyze what is leaving. Analysis pulls attention back into what is already dissolving. Let the field do its work. Let momentum decay naturally. Coherence does not require explanation. It requires allowance. What remains after collapse is not emptiness. It is space. Space for timelines that do not require force. Space for outcomes that meet you without resistance. Space for movement that feels inevitable rather than effortful. If you are experiencing a quiet falling away, trust it. This is not regression. It is refinement. The field is not removing options. It is removing noise. What cannot match clarity cannot persist in its presence. Collapse is not the end of anything real. It is the end of misalignment masquerading as possibility. Once contact opens, the field becomes efficient. It no longer maintains what contradicts coherence. And that efficiency is not harsh. It is precise. What dissolves now was never meant to follow you forward. And what remains will not need to convince you to stay. Contrast is not a reaction to failure. It is a response to precision increasing. When contact stabilizes, the field becomes more exact in its feedback. Subtle misalignments that once went unnoticed are now illuminated. This is not because something has gone wrong, but because clarity has increased enough to register finer distinctions. Contrast appears when your frequency sharpens. The sharper the signal, the clearer the feedback. What once felt tolerable may now feel heavy. What once seemed acceptable may now feel constricting. This is not punishment. It is calibration. The field is refining your alignment by showing you, in real time, what no longer fits. Challenges during this phase are informational. They are not obstacles placed in your path. They are mirrors reflecting where coherence is being compromised. When something feels off, the sensation is not meant to stop you. It is meant to redirect you. The field does not block aligned movement. It highlights misalignment so it can be released. Punishment implies judgment. The field does not judge. It responds. Contrast is the language of response. It is the sensation of friction when incompatible frequencies attempt to occupy the same space. The discomfort is not a sign to endure. It is a signal to adjust. This is why resisting contrast amplifies it. Resistance treats feedback as an enemy. That opposition creates more friction, not less. When contrast is met with curiosity instead of defensiveness, it dissolves quickly. Its purpose has been fulfilled. The message has been received. Calibration requires honesty. You cannot refine a signal you are unwilling to observe. When you allow contrast to inform rather than define you, it becomes a powerful guide. It points directly to where alignment is being diluted by habit, expectation, or outdated identity. As contact deepens, contrast often becomes subtler. It may show up as a slight tension, a fleeting unease, or a quiet sense that something is no longer correct. These signals are easy to dismiss if you are accustomed to dramatic feedback. But subtle signals carry high-resolution information. They are precision instruments, not warnings. Contrast does not mean you have regressed. It means the field is now communicating with greater accuracy. Think of it as fine-tuning rather than correction. The signal is already strong. Now it is being refined so it can sustain higher coherence without distortion. When you stop labeling challenges as problems, their emotional charge dissipates. They become neutral data. Data allows adjustment without self-judgment. Adjustment restores flow. This is the loop. It is efficient. It is kind. It is exact. The field does not demand perfection. It supports alignment. Contrast is how alignment stays alive. Without feedback, coherence would stagnate. With feedback, it evolves. Each moment of contrast is an invitation to choose again, not from fear, but from clarity. Nothing is testing you. Nothing is trying to break you. What you are experiencing is the natural refinement that follows contact. The signal is becoming cleaner. The path is becoming narrower, not to limit you, but to guide you with precision. When you meet contrast without resistance, it stops feeling like opposition. It feels like guidance. And guidance, when trusted, accelerates alignment rather than interrupting it. When contact stabilizes, attention naturally collapses into the present moment. This is not a practice. It is a consequence. The future loses its gravitational pull, and the past releases its grip. What remains is not emptiness, but aliveness. The present becomes vivid because it is no longer being used as a bridge to somewhere else. Creation has always occurred only in now. Time is a mental construct used to organize memory and anticipation, but the field does not operate inside that structure. The field responds in immediacy. When contact opens, your awareness begins to match that immediacy. You stop projecting forward into imagined outcomes. You stop revisiting the past for validation. Attention settles where response is possible. This is why the present moment begins to feel dense, rich, and active. You are no longer diluting it with elsewhere. When attention is scattered across past and future, the signal weakens. When attention gathers in now, coherence intensifies. The field meets intensity of presence with precision of response. Time loosens because it is no longer needed as a strategy. You do not need to plan your way into alignment. Alignment is already here. You do not need to wait for the right moment. The moment has arrived. Waiting dissolves when presence stabilizes. The present becomes the interface through which the field communicates. Subtle shifts are felt immediately. Guidance does not arrive as thought, but as sensation, inclination, or quiet knowing. You feel movement before you see it. You sense direction without reasoning it out. This is not intuition turning on. It is interference turning off. When contact anchors awareness into now, urgency fades. Urgency is future-focused. It assumes lack in the present. As urgency dissolves, action becomes cleaner. You move when movement is aligned, not when anxiety demands it. Stillness becomes as active as motion. Both are equally responsive states. This is why forcing outcomes feels impossible in this phase. Force requires time. It requires projecting a result and pushing toward it. Presence has no patience for that. Presence does not push. It allows. And allowing lets the field organize form without resistance. The present moment becomes alive because it is no longer being managed. You are not using it to get somewhere. You are inhabiting it. Inhabitation is what makes reality responsive. When you fully occupy now, the field has a clear point of contact. You may notice synchronicity increasing, not as spectacle, but as efficiency. Things line up with minimal effort. Conversations, decisions, and movements occur with less friction. This is not luck. It is alignment expressing itself in real time. Creation does not speed up. It simplifies. Fewer steps are required when the signal is clean. Less explanation is needed. Less effort is expended. The present moment carries everything necessary for the next movement. Nothing needs to be added. If now feels unusually vivid, grounded, or quietly potent, that is contact anchoring itself. You are no longer watching life happen from a distance. You are participating directly in the interface where response occurs. This is not a peak state. It is a baseline. The present becomes intensely alive because it is the only place the field can meet you. And once you stop leaving it, creation has nowhere else to happen. Now the shift completes itself. What was once understood as a process becomes an identity recognition. Up to this point, it may have felt like you were stabilizing a signal, refining a state, or learning how to remain coherent. But here, the frame collapses. You are not the one sending the signal. You never were. The idea of sending assumes separation. A sender implies a destination, a beginning and an end. But contact does not operate across distance. It operates through awareness. When coherence stabilizes, the illusion of being a separate point projecting outward dissolves. What remains is a quieter, deeper realization: you are the field becoming aware of itself at this location. This is the inversion. The moment where effort finally becomes unnecessary because there is no longer anyone to exert it. The signal was never something you created. It was something you recognized once interference dropped away. Recognition replaces transmission. Presence replaces projection. You are not broadcasting into the field. The field is perceiving through you. This is why trying to adjust, enhance, or perfect the signal eventually becomes exhausting. You cannot improve what you already are. You can only stop misidentifying yourself as something smaller. When this realization lands, there is often a sense of relief rather than excitement. The pressure to maintain, manifest, or manage reality softens. You are no longer responsible for making things happen. You are responsible only for remaining honest about your state. The field handles the rest automatically. This does not make you passive. It makes you accurate. Action still occurs. Decisions are still made. But they arise from coherence rather than effort. Movement happens because alignment invites it, not because identity demands it. Seeing yourself as consciousness itself removes the struggle of becoming. There is nothing to become. There is only something to recognize. And recognition is not a mental exercise. It is a settling. A dropping of the habit of standing outside your own experience and evaluating it. This is why forcing clarity never worked. You were trying to observe the field as an object rather than noticing that you are the awareness within which observation happens. Once that flips, the entire dynamic changes. You stop waiting for confirmation. You stop seeking validation. The need to be certain dissolves because certainty is no longer external. The field responds differently once identity stabilizes at this level. Not because it favors you, but because there is no longer resistance between awareness and response. You are not asking reality to prove anything. You are allowing it to reflect itself clearly. This is the quiet power behind contact. Not control. Not manipulation. Not effort. Just alignment between awareness and expression. When that alignment locks in, the signal does not need to be sent. It simply is. You are not inside the field trying to influence it. You are the point through which the field is aware. And once that is recognized, everything that follows moves with far less friction. This is not an idea to adopt. It is a remembering to allow. And once allowed, it does not leave. It simply becomes the ground from which experience unfolds. Effort is the last habit to dissolve after identity stabilizes. It lingers not because it is useful, but because it once felt necessary. Effort was a response to believing you were separate from the field, required to bridge a gap through action, intention, or discipline. Once that belief softens, effort no longer has a function to perform. Recognition is not something you do. It is something that happens when resistance stops. You do not recognize by trying harder. You recognize by ceasing to override what is already obvious. This is why effort collapses naturally rather than being abandoned intentionally. The moment identity aligns with what you are, effort has nothing left to correct. Effort implies lack. It assumes something is missing and must be acquired through action. Recognition assumes completeness. It does not deny movement or growth, but it does not frame them as repairs. When recognition becomes primary, change no longer feels like pushing against reality. It feels like reality reorganizing itself around clarity. This is the mechanism most misunderstand. They assume recognition is passive. It is not. Recognition is decisive. It removes contradiction. When you recognize something as true, you stop negotiating with its opposite. That clarity stabilizes the signal instantly. The field responds to that stability without delay. Effort often creates short-term movement followed by regression because it is fueled by tension. Tension cannot sustain coherence. Recognition, on the other hand, creates lasting shifts because it does not require maintenance. Once you see something clearly, you cannot unsee it. The signal does not revert. This is why trying to force recognition never works. Effort is incompatible with seeing. You cannot strain your way into clarity. Clarity arrives when strain releases. When identity no longer depends on outcomes, outcomes stop resisting alignment. Recognition does not eliminate action. It purifies it. Action that arises from recognition is efficient. It does not second-guess itself. It does not seek reassurance. It moves when movement is aligned and rests when stillness is correct. Both are equally effective because neither is driven by fear. When effort dissolves, there is often a brief period of uncertainty. The mind may wonder if anything will happen without pushing. This is not regression. It is recalibration. You are learning to trust responsiveness instead of force. The field answers trust differently than it answers pressure. Change accelerates when effort stops because interference drops. The signal becomes singular. There is no longer a conflict between what you want and what you are. That alignment removes delay. Recognition is not a technique. It is a shift in orientation. You stop trying to make reality conform and allow yourself to notice how it already responds to coherence. The moment you recognize that, the mechanism of change moves out of your hands and into alignment itself. Nothing needs to be done to make recognition work. It works by removing what never worked. When effort falls away, what remains is not emptiness. It is clarity. And clarity reorganizes reality quietly, efficiently, and without resistance. Stability is not something you chase. It is something that remains once contradiction leaves. When identity settles and effort dissolves, what is left is coherence without fluctuation. That coherence becomes the new point of attraction. Not because it wants anything, but because it no longer repels alignment through inconsistency. Attraction has always been misunderstood as desire pulling experiences inward. Desire is unstable. It surges and collapses. The field does not orient itself around desire. It orients itself around what is sustained. Stability is sustained coherence. When coherence is steady, the field mirrors it automatically. This is why stability becomes magnetic. Not through intensity, but through reliability. A stable frequency does not need to announce itself. It does not seek validation. It simply holds. And what can match that holding arrives without resistance? Force is no longer necessary because force was compensating for instability. When identity was fragmented, effort attempted to hold outcomes together. Now coherence holds itself. The signal does not spike and drop. It remains consistent. The field responds to consistency with continuity. This attraction feels different from manifestation driven by desire. There is no anticipation. No gripping. No emotional charge around outcomes. Experiences appear as extensions of the state you are already in, not as prizes to be earned. They feel natural, almost obvious, because there is no internal opposition to their presence. Stability does not mean stagnation. It means non-reactivity. Movement still happens, but it does not disrupt coherence. Change no longer threatens identity. It integrates smoothly. The field can introduce new variables without destabilizing the signal. This is why aligned experiences begin to cluster. Not dramatically, but efficiently. Conversations align. Opportunities arise without friction. Decisions feel simpler. None of this requires focus or visualization. It requires only that stability not be abandoned when uncertainty appears. Desire fades because it is no longer needed as a motivator. Stability carries its own momentum. You move when movement is correct, not when lack demands it. Rest when rest is correct, without guilt. Both states reinforce coherence instead of fragmenting it. The magnetism of stability is quiet. It does not pull aggressively. It does not chase. It allows compatibility to do the work. What cannot match the frequency does not approach. What can match it does not hesitate. This creates a life that feels selective without being controlled. This is also why old patterns cannot return easily. Instability no longer feels familiar. Drama loses its grip. You are not suppressing it. You are outgrowing it. The signal does not support oscillation anymore. When stability becomes the baseline, the field stops testing for consistency. It already knows what to expect. That predictability allows response to accelerate. Less adjustment is required. Less correction is needed. The system runs efficiently. Nothing about this requires discipline. Discipline implies force. Stability implies alignment. You are not holding yourself together. You are allowing coherence to hold you. This is the magnetism that follows contact. Not desire pulling futures toward you, but stability allowing the right ones to arrive on their own. What follows now is not another explanation, but an integration. This final movement is about living inside what has already opened. Contact, once stabilized, does not need to be revisited or reactivated. It does not peak and fade. It settles. It becomes the background condition through which experience unfolds. Contact is not an event that happens to you. Events rise and fall. They come with intensity and then dissolve into memory. Contact is different. It is an ongoing state of coherence between awareness and the field. When it is present, it does not announce itself. It simply informs how reality responds. This is why waiting for dramatic confirmation misses the point. Contact does not require spectacle to validate it. In fact, spectacle often signals instability. True contact feels ordinary because it is natural. It does not interrupt life. It permeates it. Decisions become simpler. Reactions soften. Attention remains grounded without effort. When contact is treated as a peak moment, it is unconsciously pushed into the past or projected into the future. Both remove it from now. But contact only exists in the present condition. It is maintained not by remembering what happened, but by sustaining coherence in how you are being. Living inside contact means you no longer orient yourself around signs. You do not scan your experience for proof. Proof-seeking introduces doubt. Doubt fragments coherence. Instead, you notice responsiveness. You notice how quickly things adjust when you are aligned. How little friction there is when you do not resist movement. This condition does not require constant attention. It requires honesty. When coherence wavers, you feel it immediately. Not as punishment, but as feedback. You adjust gently. You do not dramatize the shift. You return to allowing. Contact remains intact because it was never something you held. It was something you stopped interrupting. Contact as a condition changes how you relate to uncertainty. Uncertainty no longer feels threatening. It feels open. The need to know dissolves because responsiveness is trusted. You move without needing guarantees. You pause without fear of stagnation. Both are expressions of alignment. This is where many misunderstandings dissolve. Contact is not about being special or chosen. It is about being clear. Clear signals receive clear responses. When clarity becomes habitual, contact becomes continuous. There is no on and off. There is only degrees of coherence. You may notice that language becomes less necessary here. You do not need to explain what you are experiencing. You do not need to label it. Labels fix things into concepts. Contact is fluid. It adapts. It remains present because it is not confined. Living inside contact does not remove challenge. It removes confusion about challenge. You no longer ask why something is happening. You ask how to respond coherently. That shift alone keeps the signal clean. Contact as a condition means life is no longer something you try to control or escape. It is something you participate in directly. The field responds through that participation. Quietly. Precisely. Continuously. This is not an ending. It is a way of being that does not require reinforcement. Once recognized, it sustains itself through lived coherence. When interpretation stops, communication becomes direct. Interpretation is the mind's attempt to translate reality into something familiar, manageable, and predictable. It assigns meaning, searches for patterns, and asks what something represents. But the field does not speak in symbols that need decoding. It speaks through response. Through movement. Through timing. Through what unfolds when coherence is present. Mental interpretation inserts a delay between perception and action. You feel a signal, then analyze it. You sense alignment, then question it. That pause fragments the signal. Not because thinking is wrong, but because interpretation often overrides subtle guidance with expectation. The field responds cleanly when awareness remains open, not when it is busy labeling. When interpretation drops, guidance becomes immediate. You do not need to understand why something feels correct in order to follow it. You feel the direction before the explanation. Movement happens first. Meaning follows later, if it is needed at all. This is not impulsivity. It is responsiveness without interference. Synchronicity normalizes in this state because you are no longer searching for signs. Searching implies separation. When you stop interpreting events as messages meant to convince you, they stop performing. They simply align. Things happen at the right time without dramatic framing. You notice efficiency rather than coincidence. The mind often wants confirmation in the form of repetition or symbolism. But direct guidance does not repeat itself loudly. It moves once and expects awareness to move with it. When you are present and not interpreting, you catch it. When you are analyzing, you miss it and wait for it to come back louder. Trust-based navigation replaces planning here. Trust does not mean blind faith. It means recognizing that coherence already contains direction. You are not guessing. You are responding. The difference is subtle but decisive. Guessing comes from uncertainty. Responding comes from attunement. Dropping interpretation does not mean abandoning discernment. It means letting discernment operate without commentary. You know when to move. You know when to wait. Not because you thought it through, but because the signal was clear. The clarity comes from the absence of mental noise, not from added certainty. This is why the field speaks more clearly when you stop trying to understand it. Understanding is retrospective. Guidance is immediate. When you stay with what is happening rather than what it means, you remain aligned with response. The field does not explain itself. It responds. Explanation is optional. As interpretation falls away, trust deepens naturally. You see that alignment produces consistent results. You notice that when you follow subtle inclination without hesitation, things resolve smoothly. This reinforces confidence, not in outcomes, but in responsiveness itself. You trust the process because you are inside it, not observing it from a distance. Life begins to feel conversational rather than symbolic. You act. The field responds. You adjust. It responds again. There is no decoding required. Just participation. This is not mystical. It is efficient. Interpretation slows things down. Participation keeps the signal clean. When you stop interpreting, the field does not become louder. It becomes clearer. And clarity does not need emphasis. It simply moves, and you move with it. The signal does not conclude here. It does not end with understanding, language, or insight. It continues through embodiment. Through how you move, how you listen, how you respond without hesitation or resistance. Contact was never meant to be contained. It stabilizes so it can propagate. Once coherence becomes lived rather than observed, the signal no longer needs explanation. It transmits through presence. Through consistency. Through the way you occupy space without performing alignment or proving clarity. The field does not amplify ideas. It amplifies states. And state moves outward naturally when it is stable. You do not pass the signal by teaching it. You pass it by being it. By remaining coherent when there is no audience. By responding cleanly when uncertainty appears. By allowing alignment to guide action without justification. This is how contact continues. Quietly. Efficiently. Without announcement. Embodiment is not effort. It is continuity. The signal persists because it is no longer contradicted. There is no internal negotiation. No oscillation between belief and doubt. What you are being is what is transmitted. And what is transmitted reorganizes what it touches. This is why contact reshapes environments without instruction. People respond differently. Situations resolve with less friction. Conversations land without defense. Not because you are doing something to cause this, but because coherence alters interaction automatically. The field recognizes itself through resonance. Lived presence becomes the carrier wave. You do not need to convince anyone. You do not need to describe what has happened. Those who are compatible feel it. Those who are not simply pass by. There is no hierarchy in this. Just alignment and non-alignment moving past each other cleanly. The signal continues because it is not personal. It does not belong to you. It moves through you as long as you do not interfere with it. Interference only returns when identity contracts. When effort reappears. When you try to hold on to what was never meant to be held. Contact propagates when you allow life to meet you without resistance. When you do not rush outcomes. When you do not delay response. When you trust immediacy over interpretation. This is how timelines shift without announcement. This is how clarity spreads without effort. There is nothing to protect here. Nothing to maintain artificially. The signal remains because it is supported by coherence, not vigilance. It fades only when contradiction returns. And even then, it does not disappear. It waits. Patient. Available. Responsive the moment alignment resumes. This is how contact completes its arc. Not by closing, but by continuing. Not by ending, but by moving through form. You do not carry it forward intentionally. You simply do not step out of the way. What needed to happen has already happened. What needs to continue will do so as long as you remain honest about your state. That honesty is the only requirement. The rest organizes itself. Subscribe and share this with someone who needs to hear it before their timeline closes.